Martin. Good morning. I'm going to go walkabout for this because I always find it slightly absurd to stand on the stage with PowerPoint slides when we can actually see the development. So you're all going to have to look this way, folks. Sorry about this. Just when you thought you'd sat in a good position, it's all gone horribly wrong. And I'm well aware that many of you in this room have not been to this part of the world before. God help you if you haven't, but welcome anyway. And I thought I could sort of set the scene for the physical build, but also the principles and the ethos behind what Media City UK will offer to a range of businesses and also our partners. Martin's absolutely right. Media City UK is built on three key pillars. One is the need to have a community here, a true community. Secondly, the collaboration and partnership is vital to its success because one individual or company cannot do it alone. And thirdly, the opportunities that will roll from that are fundamental to its commercial success and its viability with organizations like yourselves and others who will join in. From our perspective as a company, I work for Peel Group. Peel Group are perhaps best known for owning the Trafford Centre, a number of airports and ports around the country. We basically build big things for a variety of reasons, but of course partly to make money out of them. So there's always going to be a commercial imperative behind what we do. At the same time, we're also a company who collaborates very closely, particularly with the public sector, to ensure that regeneration programs can be delivered and that transformational aspects of projects like this can actually come to fruition. If you came down here 25 years ago, we're on the banks of the Manchester Ship Canal, bear in mind, this was broken down, it was desolate. I was a reporter in those days, and you know, this was at a time of previous recessions when the manufacturing industry had been destroyed. And if you'd have turned around then and said, we could be where we are today, you would have laughed at the prospect. That is what a mix of private investment and public sector support and infrastructure ultimately delivers. And that's why you've got a whole block of offices down here, you've got 13,000 people living here, you've got the Lowry where you're sat, you've got Imperial War Museum around the corner, between them pulling 2 million visitors a year. So we believe that Media City is actually part of a much wider destination theme. It's not just about building buildings. If it was about building buildings, it'd be deathly dull. It's actually about people, inspiration, the ideas that Martin's talking about, and the ability to work together. So who's coming here? BBC. Richard will be talking about the detailed involvement of the BBC. You've no doubt read about the relocation of their key departments here, including BBC Sport, 5 Live, and Children's, which until recently Richard was running. And the importance of that should not be understated. The BBC is a powerhouse of programme making. It makes programmes of great quality, of great integrity, of great credibility. It's a brand that has a unique international standing. I speak as an ex-BBC News person, knowing the importance of the influence that the BBC has worldwide. And we undermine that at our peril, but equally we must understand, therefore, the influence that it will bring to this part of the world. And it just doesn't mean, as Martin says, opportunities for the northwest of England. It means opportunities across the piece for the north of England as a whole, but also around the UK. The media will always have and create a great demand for interest in opportunities. So the BBC are going to be located in 3 buildings here. And the model works that they've signed a lease for 20 years with a 10-year option beyond that. The University of Salford are going to be based in, if you can see the cladding here where there's the cream and slightly brownish colour cladding. That's where you're going to be. Martin, I think you've already pre-selected your office. I believe it has the best view, surprisingly, of the water. Next door to that, we've also got a tower block of apartments. We've got 400 apartments on site. Part of the vision around the development is to ensure that people are working here, living here, and visiting here, because without that, you haven't got that true vibe that's needed to drive a truly creative community. So 400 apartments in total. BBC will occupy 3 buildings. Northwest Vision and Media have just moved in across the road from Broadway, and again, we'll move on to the site once it's completed in 2011. From our perspective, the infrastructure is really important. You can't see it from where you're sat, but no doubt you'll walk onto the terrace later if you get time. You can see the piazza space in front of the buildings. This is an absolutely critical asset. It's a 5-acre public space, which is twice the size of Trafalgar Square, just to give you some idea of context. And there are 2 aspects of that. One is a green park area, which will have all sorts of activities for the public, but also an event space in front of the studios. The studios, basically this building here, where you can see the crane, I'm told that's the biggest crane in Europe or something. I'm not quite sure whether to believe it, but it sounds good. Those are the studios. You can see those blocks, the various coloured blocks coming out of the building. On either side of the studio development, on the left-hand side is some commercial office space. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side is, or will be, a 220-bedroom Holiday Inn. And then behind the studios is a car park. You can just see it, again, another crane behind that, where the car park will be. The car park and the hotel are fundamental assets to the development, but they're also part of the assets that are required within this area, because there's a football club not far away from here that pulls in quite a few people when they have matches, both at weekends and in midweek. And there's always so shall we say, a premium around car parking and also the need for hotel rooms. So we believe it offers a wider proposition to the marketplace, not just developed around Media City and program makers. The studios will be a Peel Media-run facility. So our partners at the BBC, for example, have an agreement on usage of those studios and what they want to create within them. But beyond that, they'll be available for commercial rent or for use on a pay-per-use basis. That's a fundamental principle to us, because when we're talking to other broadcasters or content producers, we need to be in a position to offer them the use of facilities that minimizes their costs, no capex for one, but secondly, the ability to use them when they need them. And this is a really important proposition to ITV and the commercial sector at the moment, because of the issues around capex being at a premium. We're working with a company called Ascent Media. They are Santa Monica-based international distributor of content, working with a number of key American brands, particularly Disney, ESPN, NBC, Universal. They will, with us, partner on a joint venture here. It's not yet been publicly announced, but it will be shortly, around a range of media services that will be on offer both in the studios and the surrounding buildings. Again, they will not be exclusive. They will be very much dovetailing with the enormous supply chain that both the BBC brings with it, and also the smaller companies who want to engage in the process of making content here. Because in the end, that's what it's about, from both the BBC's perspective and anyone else who's working here. We also have a retail offer. When I say retail, I mean cafes, bars, restaurants, because again, to get that vibrancy and buzz, you need to create something that will keep people here. You don't want them popping in to do their shift and then disappearing off home. Within an ideal world, we want an environment that has that buzz, if not 24 hours a day, certainly through the day and through the evening. Again, that's a very different principle from the way certainly the BBC has operated. In my experience, you work at Television Centre or you work at Oxford Road, and it's very much a one culture building, because that's the way you run your business. Here, it's essentially a public environment, so it enables the ability to get closer to audiences, to truly engage with people in a way you've not done before, but also perhaps just to bump into people on the piazza and talk about programming ideas. That's what the media do. Another important provision from our perspective is the Metrolink tram. Again, you'll see the tracks are in place. If you look from the terrace, that will drop people right at the heart of the development. It doesn't matter whether I'm working here, whether I'm popping in to see a show, or whether I'm coming to the Lowry or going to the Imperial War Museum. We'll have something that drops people in the heart of the development. There's a continuing issue in Manchester about having that right connectivity in terms of transport infrastructure. Here, we're blessed with being very close to the motorway network just around the corner, so that's one key aspect. But what we needed was better provision, particularly of the Metrolink tram, but also of bus routes, and even simple things like taxis, which are now being dealt with by our colleagues at Salford City Council, because the BBC alone, the BBC staff are used to using quite a few cabs, maybe 10 an hour each or something like that, Richard, but certainly quite a few. So what we need is rather more than the 50 or 60 that have got licenses at the moment in Salford, because there's clearly a good opportunity there. Another opportunity we see once we've got footfall here is the water. Obviously, it's a fantastic stretch of water. It's used commercially anyway. In a happy coincidence, we own the canal, so we can actually dictate to a degree what's done on it, whether it's floating restaurants, whether it's water taxis. And there are various ideas around a service in and out of Manchester, but also as far down as the Trafford Centre. There are one or two issues around locks and getting through them, which means there are some significant pauses in your journey, but hey-ho. We've had a couple of companies who run water taxis in Cardiff Bay. If you know Cardiff at all, they've had a phenomenal regeneration program in that part of the world. And again, they've brought the water to life in the same way that Liverpool has as well in the last 10 years, using the natural assets to bring people to enjoy the experience. So we're looking at a number of proposals for 2011. On the opposite side of the water, you can see the blue crane there, the top of the blue crane. That's Trafford Wharf. So next door to the Imperial War Museum car park, there's another 8 or 9 acres that is part of what we call the first phase of Media City. That is a site pre-allocated for our friends at ITV. They're now looking at the proposition that we've given to them. Publicly, they'll tell you that they're not, but believe you me, they are. The issues they have are around their own business and what they want to do, what their priorities are, where they think they'll be by 2011, the number of staff they'll employ, the kind of programs they want to make, the sort of facilities they need. And we believe that we can give them a compelling reason to be here, and BBC are very supportive of that. Other broadcasters such as B-Sky B, Channel 4, Channel 5, some of whom use a significant number of independent program providers. Again, they've all visited here, as have a range of businesses who are looking at ways of tapping into the opportunities that will be here. In terms of timescales, the main BBC building here, which no doubt Richard will talk about, was handed over, you may have seen some publicity about 6 or 8 weeks ago, for a technical fit-out, because obviously that's a big job. If they want to be broadcasting by 2:11, then they need 1 or 2 cables. So that work is already underway. The tram, the piazza, the first phase of apartments will all be occupied by the middle of 2010. So what you will see over the coming 12 to 18 months is an incremental opening of Media City. This is not a development that has a beginning or an end, really. It's something that in 10 years may be much bigger, depending on demand, but it's not something that, although we'll have a launch event, if you like, in 2011, it's something that will be growing almost by the day. The university will be taking up residence in September 2011, Martin, I think, and your building will be ready on time, I'm delighted to tell you. In fact, at the moment we're running several weeks ahead of schedule with all the buildings, which is good news for all concerned. So at the moment, the priority on site is delivering the infrastructure, thinking about how people will populate it, taking in that feeling of inspiration. And when people go on site or they see it for the first time, it's a quite extraordinary vista. What it needs, though, of course, is people to populate it and deliver upon the aspirations that people have. So it's not about where we are at the moment, it's where we will be that matters. Thank you.